Nintendo stuff. Hello, welcome to Nintendo Stuff. My name is Brandon Miracle. We're broadcasting live from the newly lit Break Room Arcade. This is Logan Welliver, eating some peanut butter. This wasn't discussed prior to the show starting, so I'm sorry.
Do I need to discuss my peanut butter eating habits?
I mean, not really, no.
Oh my god, it's so good.
I imagine it is. I like peanut butter too. In fact, I'd be ashamed if I wasn't. I'd be ashamed if you weren't a fan of peanut butter.
Yeah, this is the peanut butter podcast, everybody.
It reminds me of Paul and I's, one of our first live action endeavors on YouTube was called Simply Peanut Butter. So that's a big old reference. Today is episode 56. We have a lot to talk about. Some upcoming news for Nintendo Switch. And we're also going to be reminiscing about Pokemon Yellow Special Pikachu Edition. Today is the 30th? 20th? 20th.
It's the 20th anniversary. You're getting ahead of yourself.
I am.
You're 20th not that old.
It came out on October 19th, 1999.
You realize you're only 25 years old,
right? I know. Welcome, Sandman. Yes, this is a table. Not the first time we've used it, but you can probably see it a little better because we have ceiling lights now, and we're lit by from the front, so I think things look a lot better. That project took 3-ish hours. We ran into some trouble on the second light that took a while to fix.
We worked really hard to get these lights up.
Logan says we, but it was me and my dad.
That's still we. I did help a little bit. Just
moral support.
Yeah, if I wasn't there, I'm not sure that you guys would have made it.
Oh, okay. I see how it is.
Yo, and there's already
we've got
guests.
We have some guests attracted to our new lights.
There's already like a dead bug right now.
Woo!
We're killing it, man.
Thank you, Conman RDW, friend of the show, says we look so official.
Yeah, we try our best.
Yeah, we've been working on the setup for quite a while. I actually got a new addition to the studio in addition to all of this, sitting over there on the floor. I'd completely forgotten about it, and then we saw it when we got home from that party we went to. Yeah. We have an Elgato green screen now.
Yeah, it's larger than I was anticipating.
Yeah, it's also heavier than I was anticipating.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not that bad, and
it'll make screaming. It'll make screaming a lot easier streaming.
Yeah, hopefully it makes screaming a lot easier too.
Yeah, you can't stream if you don't scream.
I mean, I feel like that's objectively true. I feel like if you're not yelling at the camera, like you're not putting enough energy into the stream.
True.
I try to be just slightly more obnoxious than normal when I'm streaming.
I think everyone does that.
Yeah.
At least people who are used to it. There's kind of like a mode you go into once the stream begins.
Yeah.
But, I try not to be too loud on mine. If I get loud, it's because I'm laughing at something. That's usually all it is. Sandman says, please no screaming. We're not going to scream. This is a podcast. We understand that you're probably listening through headphones.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, I am.
We do have limiters on the microphone, so hopefully, even if we are screaming, it'll only reach a certain level.
Yeah, we should avoid any deafness.
Yeah.
So before we get into the news, I actually want to talk about Ring Fit Adventure.
Is that something you've played before?
You might say that, yes.
I've never heard of it. What is it?
Ring Fit Adventure is Nintendo's new kind of quality of life fitness casual gimmick game for Nintendo Switch. It really calls back to the Wii era.
Mm-hmm.
With a little bit of Wii Fit, a little bit of that weird Nintendo gimmicky charm where they try something that's really out there. And it's not that the Ring Fit itself is even out there all that much because it's a Pilates ring. It's a thing that already exists. They're just applying it in a new way. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with the way this works so far. I've done 3 levels because I played it for the first time last night, which is 2 running levels. The first level is just running, getting down the basics of how to control the game. The second level introduces some actual RPG battles, which took me by surprise. So I'm playing on the 19th intensity level on level intense. and I was having to do 20 reps of squats to do maybe a quarter of a quarter of health on a monster.
Yeah, I was surprised because I was watching it last night as you were going at it, and especially once you hit that first boss. And I was like, there's no way that he's having to do like this many squats just to make like the tiniest dent in the boss's health.
It really pushes you. I was surprised. Don't even get me started on Drago, because, you fight Drago in the 3rd level. You're going to fight Drago several times over the course of the adventure, and I'm sure he'll get more difficult and have more moves as the matches go on. But, like, that fight took me anywhere from, 7 to 10 minutes. It was a lot. It took a lot out of me. By the end, I was, screaming in pain. Yeah, his health bar is really long. I had to do so many squats.
I probably could do the game on the hardest difficulty.
Extreme?
That's how fit I am.
You might think that before you start, but that'll change.
Yeah, I think that's something I'd like to do tonight. I'd like to
give it a
try
shot.
It out. Yeah, see what's up.
The resistance on the ring it's surprising. It's really sturdy, but it takes a lot of power to squeeze it.
Yeah, I noticed something because I've tried squeezing it in a few times, and the one thing I do notice is you have to have a little a level of stability with it, right?
Yeah.
You can't just push it, otherwise you're gonna go to one side or another. You have to kind of manage that as you're pushing it in.
It requires you to have the same amount of strength being applied by each arm. Otherwise, like you said, it's gonna twist and you're gonna kind of jerk it out of your hands.
Yeah.
And the other main action for the ring is pulling it, which is even harder than squeezing it.
Yeah. I'm really curious as to how it actually measures it. We're just staring at it. Why didn't we bring it over here?
You can keep talking about it. I'll go get it.
It's kind of fascinating to think that I still don't know how exactly it reads it. At first I was maybe it has something to do with the actual IR camera or maybe the actual motion, but it knows when you're squeezing it and when you're doing other things,
right,
to whether you're pulling it or not. So I can't imagine that it's solely based on the IR camera.
No,
maybe there's a sensor within here, because
I'm pretty sure there's a resistance sensor all the way through the band.
Yeah, maybe some way to read it.
And that information is transferred to the Switch over the Joy-Con.
Right.
That said, it does use the IR camera in a pretty cool way too.
Yeah, to read your
pulse.
Your pulse.
So after levels, it'll ask you if you want to read your pulse, and you just put your thumb over it for 10 or 15 seconds, and then it'll give you your heart rate, which is really cool because then it can use that to give you some advice on whether or not you're working too hard.
Yeah, this is something I feel like I could get used to. And honestly, especially just feeling it just going as it is right now, I can imagine that this could strengthen your arms and maybe even improve my performance in another very active motion game,
Beat Saber,
which I play quite a bit, which I've been getting stupid good at. Watch out, you guys.
So, the ring itself is really impressive, but I have to shout out the leg strap. So, there's a lot of floor exercises that you can do that don't require the ring itself. And you slot the Joy-Con in here and then strap it around your left leg. It was able to tell how deep I was squatting, and I would do more damage if I got lower to the ground when I bent down.
Yo.
So, you get rewarded for working harder. Yeah.
Oh, the deeper squat. That's incredible. And I imagine that's just based on, because, obviously you have to calibrate it, get it on a level playing field. So I imagine it uses the...
It just surprises me, too.
And the accelerometer.
It just surprises me because, for some of these exercises, one of them I had to get on the ground. and like lay on my butt with my arms back, and then bring my knees in and out, and it was still able to know how deep I was bringing my knees in.
Right.
And I'm like, how does it know that? How does what kind of science is it using to know just how much work I'm putting in?
Right. Well, I imagine part of it's just like the actual, positioning. Is it straight up? Is it to the side? Because
Right.
obviously, if you're standing up straight, it's going to be in that default position.
Yes.
So it's going to be like, well, okay, obviously he's standing up straight.
So it might like have a general range of motion that it's looking for, and maybe it even attunes itself to you the more you play, just to get an idea of maybe how long your legs are,
Right.
because that's going to be different for every person. Because I noticed that for one of the exercises I was doing, I think it was like a yoga pose, and it required very slow, deliberate movements. I had to have my legs bent, my back out, and I had to bring the ring up and then slowly down in front of me and then back up the other way. And it was not happy with how lightly I was bending. I had to get down pretty far before it was like, okay, now you can do the exercise.
Yeah.
Because it prompts each exercise by having you do a few things, like hold the ring out in front of you, bend your knees, and it won't let you start the attack until you have attained the correct form.
Ooh.
So it really does push you in the right direction. And
Right.
obviously you also have a guy on the screen who's doing the exercises so that you can mimic him. His name's Tip, by the way, because it gives you tips.
Of course.
So yeah, it's pretty neat. Also, the ring is sentient. His name is Ring. Go figure.
Yeah, I was talking to you. I was a little weirded out.
It's kind of neat, though, because he gives you encouragement while you're doing the exercises. And while that might sound like, it doesn't really do anything, it does. It does make me feel good when he's, like, sitting there and, if he sees me slowing down, he's like, it's okay to take a small break and then get back into the attack again.
Of course.
And
then every 15 minutes he tells us to take a break, right?
Yeah, we're getting back to that Wii era a little bit. Another neat thing is when you finish a level, it has you do a victory pose. You have to squat for like 5 seconds and then bring your ring up above your head and go, victory!
And it records it too. Just kidding.
You get experience points for doing it.
Yeah.
Also, leveling up, your stats don't increase, you get gains.
You get gains. Does your character get like thicker?
I don't know yet because I only leveled up 3 times, but they call the stat boost gains, which I thought was cute. Yeah, it's super fun. I can't wait to dig in more tonight. I do plan on playing like 30 minutes to an hour every day. I know most, if not everyone who reviewed the game wasn't able to finish it before, the review embargo was up.
So there's that much content.
So there's a lot of game. Like when I was watching some of Andre at Game Explain's content, he was getting like level 59, level 60, and he still wasn't done yet.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of content in this game. The one thing I'm really hoping for is that there's a good gameplay loop. So, like, after you beat the adventure, is there a new game plus? Is there a way to just keep going? Like,
Yeah.
I don't mind if I play the same levels over again, if they're more difficult and we keep progressing. I don't want to go back down to 0 and then progress back up
Right.
again. So that's my main worry with the game so far, but other than that, I think this is a great buy for $80,
Yeah.
especially if you're just looking for a little bit of activity in your life. I mean, I was sweating bullets by the time I was done.
Yeah, and I think most of us could. I think the general what's the word I'm looking for? The market, like gamers in general.
Yeah.
Could probably stand up and get a little activity from time to time.
True, and I mean, that's part of the reason I like this so much is because it kind of caters a little bit to that more traditional gamer.
Yeah.
It's really motivating. Like, when I was playing, I forgot I was exercising.
Yeah.
I was, jogging isn't easy for a lot of people, especially if you haven't been active recently,
Yeah.
but I wasn't getting tired.
It's also really monotonous.
Yeah.
Right. So like to have kind of this interaction, this RPG element, this story.
There's platforming too.
Yeah. To think that like, okay, well, it kind of gets your mind off of the actual physical activity. Again, like kind of goes back to the same thing with like Beat Saber or any like really active game, Just Dance. It really contextualizes the actual movements, and so the main focus isn't necessarily the actual activity, but the actual gameplay, and that can make those movements a lot more tolerable, especially if you're not used to working out or a lot of activity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, like Ring Fit is a genius in design because it's always like actively encouraging you to keep going. People love leveling up.
Right.
That's why RPGs succeed, because you get to see the fruits of your labor. You get to see that progression. So they're tying that progression a little bit to healthy progression, and it kind of guides you in that way. So good on you, Nintendo, for Ring Fit Adventure. I think it's really fun, and I'm super excited that it's finally here. I'm really, really, really excited for this game.
Good.
So yeah, I think we can get into some news now.
Okay, cool. Well, I would probably say that Ring Fit Adventure is one of the many reasons that the Switch is doing so well as it is.
Yes, it is.
We should talk about how the Nintendo Switch has surpassed 15 million sales in North America alone.
Only?
Only.
Wow.
So just North America sales, it has surpassed the lifetime Wii U sales.
Yeah, I mean, that's not entirely too hard, but specifically just North America has achieved that.
And going with that, like, it is now like the second month in a row that, September and the previous month, that Nintendo Switch was the best-selling platform, which, for a lot of reasons, it's, for one, it's got a lot going for it. We have Pokémon on the way.
I think that's going to be the biggest reason now.
Especially with the Switch Lite out now as well.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I would imagine that has also increased a certain amount of sales. I mean, even though that was only like the last week of September, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And there really hasn't been many first-party releases either, so I think you're right. I think it's leading up to the stuff on the way.
So that's an interesting thing to talk about as well, because...
Did I just accidentally segue?
Yeah, absolutely. But
Wow.
all these stories are kind of related.
Sure.
Because even though there haven't been that many releases, there have been a few, something like Link's Awakening, of course.
Yes.
Which is something that
Which was late September.
Yeah. And so the best-selling games in September of 2019 in the U.S., Link's Awakening was number 4.
Wow. I mean, well, I guess that's kind of typical for Zelda.
Right. It's and then it's also, it's release month, and the fact that it was 4th, even though it came out a little later in the month as well.
It only had like 10 days to accumulate sales.
The things above that were NBA 2K20,
of course,
Borderlands 3,
of course,
and FIFA 20.
Yeah, that all makes sense.
And then right after that was Madden 20. But down the line here, the 10th best-selling was Mario Kart 8.
Deluxe?
I would imagine so.
Okay.
It just says Mario Kart 8. But
I would imagine it's not Wii U.
It's not Wii U.
That would be impressive.
Number 13 is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is a game that is coming up on its year anniversary.
Yeah, it is. Just a couple months here.
And probably the reason I even put this thing in here, and I'm talking about these, number 20th, the 20th best-selling game of September 2019 is Breath of the Wild.
That's awesome.
So when we talk about how this system is selling as well as it is, that the last 2 months, have done as well as it has, it's partially due to the fact that it has a solid lineup, and these games are still selling, fantastically, even 2 years into its existence, almost 3 years into its existence.
Yeah, come this March.
Yeah.
And Nintendo has always been about releasing those evergreen titles.
Yep.
I would not have called Breath of the Wild an evergreen title. So what that says to me is that How many sales did it get? Does it say?
It doesn't say here. I mean, we know
We
that it's like over 13 million.
We can take that number. Well, not total sales, but just for September.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it doesn't say the specific
We can
sales.
take that number and just say that's how many new Switches appeared in just September alone.
Yeah. Also, that should be noted that all of the titles that I listed for the Switch do not include digital sales. Those are purely physical.
Nintendo doesn't usually reveal digital sales numbers.
No.
Which is kind of crummy because I would like to know.
Yeah, they don't really differentiate they'll talk about like total sales, but they won't tell you how many are digital.
Right.
But those ones do not include the digital sales.
Yeah, I think it's clear Nintendo's back on the horse again. They've really have recovered from the Wii U era.
Yeah.
And the next couple of years I think are going to be great. We already have several really big Nintendo games on the horizon for us.
And honestly, I think this Ring Fit Adventure is probably bigger than we think it's going to be. I think this will be something that probably doesn't sell like incredible amounts in the first week, but long term, it'll probably do pretty well, especially if it's as good as people think it is.
Families, parents, friends, they're going to see their loved ones playing this and they're going to be like, hey, what's that? Yeah. It's going to really rekindle that kind of Wii era of gaming.
Yeah, and also something interesting that Nintendo doesn't do is with most of their games that they did with this is the fact that once you are already in the game, you can choose your profile, right?
Yeah,
so
I forgot about that.
You don't have to be necessarily concerned with it being your Switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that you're probably going to want if you have a regular Nintendo Switch, not necessarily a Switch Lite.
Yeah.
Because you can't hook the Switch Lite up to the TV.
And you would need Joy-Cons.
Yes, you would need Joy-Cons, so I imagine that you wouldn't even be able to play it on there as well. I mean, you probably could.
Andre at Game Explain tried it on the Switch Lite. It works. He just doesn't recommend it.
I mean, yeah, because you have to be actually looking at it.
Right.
And I can't imagine it'd be fun on an
It's
even
hard
smaller
enough on
screen.
that tiny screen.
Yeah, for sure. The only other stats we got going on here are the fact that of the best-selling titles in 2019, there's only one Switch game on there, which is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Makes sense.
Which is kind of, yeah, it's understandable. There haven't been like huge titles released this year.
No, not what's coming in November.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I feel like this list will change quite a bit once...
I think this could possibly be Switch's best holiday season yet. We've got Pokémon, which, I mean, is huge on its own. But coming in March, right after that, is Animal Crossing. There are going to be lots and lots of Switches being bought for the Christmas season.
Yeah, I think Switch Lites are going to just fly off the shelf, especially in places like Japan.
Yeah.
Where mobile gaming is huge. Same thing with like the last 12 months. Smash Bros. Is at number 3. And number 8 of 2019.
I think that shows and proves how well the DLC model just kind of keeps it in the public eye.
Yeah. So, wow, there's actually a little bit more here than I thought. In Nintendo Switch's best-selling games of 2019, we'll start with number 10, Super Mario Party.
I'm glad that game is doing so well.
It's doing fantastically. I think the only other game that has sold more than it might be
Advance or DS.
Probably Advance or DS, and then also 8.
Yeah,
because 8 was the Wii.
Yeah,
the Wii title. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe is at number 9. That game's still doing pretty well. Yeah, I was surprised.
Me too.
I'd still love to pick up that game, but I'm not spending $60 on it.
I wouldn't either. I mean, it's a great game. I played it years ago. I'm not in a rush.
For sure. And you've already played it, so whatever.
I don't count.
8, Astral Chain. 7, Dragon Quest 11S.
That makes me so happy to hear.
I don't know if I'll ever get around to playing it, but
it's a commitment.
Yeah, I've a lot of my enjoyment with that game, my emotional attachment has come from just watching you play it.
It makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's fun to see you get into RPGs.
I'm glad that like I got to start, having that journey with RPGs with Kingdom Hearts because it's opening me up to a lot of games that I wouldn't have otherwise played.
Yeah, dude, so many.
Yeah. Dragon Quest, I think, is the quintessential RPG.
I'm so looking forward to that 2020 release of Xenoblade Chronicles.
Oh, yes. I
That
can't
remake.
wait.
Oh, the visual upgrade is just fantastic.
Yeah, that's so exciting.
Yeah. Number 6, Super Mario Maker 2.
Another great game.
Number 5, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Of course.
Number 4, Spyro Reignited Trilogy.
Really?
Yeah, it's only like one of like 2 non-exclusive games on this list.
That one surprises me, though, because, it came out on Switch so late.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that hasn't mattered in the cases of a lot of other games like Dragon Quest.
Yeah,
That
for
said,
sure.
Dragon Quest is, it's an enhanced port. It's not
Yes,
quite just
correct.
a port. But, wow, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. And then topping it off, 3, Super Smash Bros. 2, Mario Kart 8, and 1.
Odyssey?
Huh?
Super Mario Odyssey?
No, Link's Awakening.
Oh, I was just curious.
It
Odyssey
just
didn't even
came
make the list.
out. No,
I
yeah,
know.
Odyssey didn't. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
That's one of the best-selling games on the system. Fastest-selling games on the system.
I imagine it's probably below that somehow,
Yeah, it's probably not too far from the top 10.
Yeah, especially some of those newer games.
I can't believe I forgot about Zelda.
They also list the best-selling 3DS games here of September.
Well, I'm curious. Let's take a stroll down this list.
Okay, number 10. Guess what it is?
Is it a Pokemon game? Mario Kart 7.
No, Mario Kart 7 is on this list.
Okay.
This is actually a game that is getting a sequel very soon.
Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon.
No, just Luigi's Mansion.
The 3DS remake.
The 3DS remake, right.
Okay.
Number 9, this is the most popular game in the world.
Mario Kart 7?
The most
Minecraft.
Yeah. I was like, what? There's no way.
I was confused. I forgot Minecraft is on the 3DS.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's on the 3DS.
Such a weird thing.
Oh, God, it's sold so much. Number 8 is one of the most beloved adventure games ever created.
Ocarina of Time?
Ocarina of Time. Number 7 is Super Smash Bros. Number 8, Super Mario 3D Land.
I love that game.
Yeah, it's really, really. I've beaten that entire game, but they make you play through like the entirety of it like again, like harder.
There's 8 worlds.
Right.
And then there are 8 remixed worlds.
Yes.
They're not exactly just the same levels.
Mhm.
And there's also some brand new ones sprinkled in there too.
Right. I've played a good chunk of that part of the game, but I've at least played the main
quest.
part of the game. Yeah. 5, Mario Kart 7. 4, Majora's Mask 3D.
Love that game.
3, Super Mario Maker
For 3DS.
for 3DS.
The one where you can't share your levels.
Yep.
Wow. I guess
It
if you
is what it
only
is.
had a 3DS, it would still be pretty tempting to buy that.
And can you guess what the top 2 are?
Okay, have you said Mario Kart 7 yet?
I've already said Mario Kart 7.
They're Pokemon games.
They're Pokemon games.
Sun and Moon?
Sun and Moon. Guess which one is 1, and guess which one is 2.
They're not Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, are they? Just
Yes,
regular. They are?
They are Ultra Sun and Moon.
Okay. So which one's top? Ultra Moon's top.
Nope.
Ultra Sun?
Ultra Sun and
Ah.
Ultra Moon.
Okay.
Okay. So I mean that's it for. I like going through numbers. I really
Yeah.
do.
Well, especially the 3DS numbers. It was interesting to kind of see how that console's still going.
Cosmic Bone says, "What's wrong with Pikachu on the right?"
That Pikachu is, I think, almost 20 years old.
Yeah, this is Chonky Pikachu.
It's Gigantamax Pikachu.
Yeah, this is Gigantamax Pikachu. Yeah, is this what year is this on this? It says 2004.
Yeah, so it's getting up there.
That's 15 years. So that's when Pikachu was still chonky before he got fit.
Right. That Pikachu is actually electronic. I don't think the battery still works, but it turns on his
Oh, can you replace the battery?
I might be able to. I guess we're figuring it out. But his cheeks light up red, and his ears wiggle.
That's amazing. If
Yeah.
we can replace the battery, Yeah, so here's the battery pack.
The little the butt box.
Can I get it out? Yeah, it looks like we can.
What does it take?
It's off, dude.
Well, I mean, it might be dead. It's alive!
Dude!
Press the... He's got little buttons in his hands.
On his hands?
Yeah.
Let's put it back in his butt.
If you're listening on podcast sources, if you go to the YouTube channel, you can see this live.
We are
dissecting Pikachu live on the show. Santi says he had the same one growing up.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I was going to say we were violating Pikachu.
This is a G-rated show. Pika! Yeah, he's got a little button in his hand.
Wait. Oh, yeah, the speaker's back here.
Do his ears not wiggle anymore? Maybe the motor's broken. I think it's just in his left hand. Let them see his face so you can see the cheeks light up.
Yeah. See it. You can kind of see it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, now that we know... Oh, no. I didn't put it in properly now.
he's off kilter. Gigantamax is taking a gigantanap.
Oh man. But yeah, talking about numbers. There was at one point that I was constantly on VG charts.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Back when we were in college.
Yeah, I don't go on there so much anymore, partially because the numbers aren't quite as accurate.
No, they're really not.
They're sometimes in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Especially because they will update them. Ooh. If they get official numbers. But again, it's kind of all ballpark stuff.
Right.
You just wait.
It gets you the idea.
Official numbers.
Logan is dying.
I got the hiccups.
It's because of what you did to poor Pikachu. Look at him.
Oh my god.
He heard me. Pikachu heard me. He responded.
That's horrible. Oh man. Okay.
Oh gosh.
So, but I still like numbers. I still
Yeah.
really do. And it's fun to see how that happens. You gotta chill, man.
You turned him on.
I turned him on. I'm like debating whether I should actually go back and turn him off.
You hand him to me. I'll do it.
So talking about numbers and best selling games for comparison and games that are probably going to sell really, really well. I want to talk about the thing. Oh no, look up. That's what I wanted
Here.
to do.
I got it. He's safe.
Good.
Pikachu's safe.
Oh, and you fixed. Okay, cool. I guess I just suck.
Poor Pikachu. Can't believe you did that to him.
Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Thank you.
There's my segue.
Okay.
Pokemon Sword and Shield rep says wild area is about the size of 2 regions from Zelda Breath of the Wild.
2 regions?
2 regions.
That's enormous.
It's massive. I'm trying to there's a part of me that doesn't believe it. A part of me that wants to say this rep doesn't know what they're talking about.
I mean, we've seen some of the map, and it looks big.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, biomes in there.
All the people who are ticked off that the games are going to be running at 720, 30 FPS.
Docked? Or
yeah,
okay.
I believe so. They can all just go away. Because if this is the trade-off, that we get a wild area that is that large and maybe some more detail out of this.
I mean, it's even more important to note that that's a section of the game that you can free roam with your friends. That's really cool.
It's really cool. And you can encounter Pokemons that are way higher level than you should be dealing with.
It's Pokemon Sword and Shield Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the comparison a lot of people make.
Yeah, because, I mean, in Xenoblade, you can run into monsters that can one-shot you.
Oh, yeah, that was always fun, just walking and be like, oh, look, there's this massive, level 80 monster, and I'm like, level 10.
And then they aggro you.
They aggro you, and you're like, okay, please tell me I can get away before they hit me, and then you get hit, and you're like, that's it.
I'm dead. Go back to your last save point.
So, it's. I just like that they're doing this, and the fact that and even if this isn't entirely accurate, I think the point stands is that this is a really, really large area.
Yeah.
Possibly the largest thing that Pokemon has ever done outside of maybe Pokemon Go, where the whole play area is the
Gigantamax
world.
Pokemon.
A little Gigantamax.
Long
Pikachu.
Meowth.
Yeah. So this is intense, and there's a part of me that doesn't want to buy the game until I go back and finish Y and Sun, because I feel like I have to earn my right to play these games. But like each time, each generation, there's like, here's an improvement, here's something new. X and Y was the first true 3D game. Sun and Moon, for me, like the big thing was that they just up and eliminated the grid,
yeah,
which is something I was like, okay, why is it still an X and Y? Like we have 3D already,
and now we're taking it to the next level with Pokemon Sword and Shield, where we have an entire area of the game where we can rotate the camera.
Yeah, we have free camera movement, and the Pokemon are just there. And obviously they did that in Let's Go, but
and this is just confined to the wild area,
right?
Yeah.
Right. Which, I mean, that's fine.
Yeah,
there's
that's
a
great
place
compromise.
where I'm like, I'm running into an Onix and it's going to murder all of my Pokemon. Hopefully you have.
Imagine if you get like attacked by. I wouldn't be surprised if legendary Pokemon have a chance of appearing in the wild area. So if you run into a legendary Pokemon by accident, and they're usually like on the high end, like level 70, level 75,
right?
They could just wipe out your team and prevent you from being able to run away.
That'd be pretty intense. Yeah, I could imagine that happen. Hopefully you have some really fantastic Pokeballs on you to make those catches.
I wonder if there'll be like, I mean, you remember the Safari Zone in the first generation of games where like catching Pokemon just had its own mechanic in the Safari Zone.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of cool, because I know in the anime and in the game they had the Safari Balls. If we just had like a wild area ball that we could use that might heighten the chance of catching a Pokemon out there.
Yeah,
even
maybe.
if it's well, I guess I shouldn't say this. I was gonna say even if it's a much higher level than you, but that would kind of break the game.
Yeah, I was gonna say like you probably at a certain point will only have access to like Pokeballs, and
I have to wonder though, if you can fight Pokemon that are way stronger than you, would it theoretically be possible to capture one that's like way over level?
Yeah, that was the question that was coming to my mind. Like, it's going to be a lot harder to say like, okay, I'm just throwing a Pokeball at a level 50. Like, you might need a Great Ball or an Ultra Ball, or
it's still just calculated on a percentage, so there's always the chance you could capture it.
Right.
That said, Pokemon has, I guess I should clarify, in the past, because of trading, that was still a problem, because you could just get traded a really strong Pokemon.
Yeah.
To circumvent that, Pokemon of a certain level would only listen to you if you had gotten X, Y, or Z badge.
Yes.
So that's probably still in effect here.
Yeah, they're probably pretty ineffective Pokemon at a certain point.
Yeah, they just won't listen to you. They either struggle or use their own attacks.
Yeah. So last thing before we move on from the story, I'll just read what has been said. The wild area is a fairly large open world location, which the Pokemon Company rep on hand estimated was about the size of 2 regions from Zelda Breath of the Wild. So this is an estimation. Could be smaller, could be bigger.
True.
Who knows? Here you do have control of the camera and can see Pokemon roaming about on their own as bees flit around flowers, fish Pokemon jump in the lakes, and larger creatures such as Onix, which are warned not to get close to because they're too high level, wander about freely. This is part of the evolution of Pokemon.
It helps
right?
make the world feel more real too.
Yeah.
Especially just the fact that there are Pokemon that can wipe you out, that will be out there. It just it makes the world make sense.
I can't wait to run into a floating teapot just out in the wild. I wonder.
And there's the raid battles, which are actually available in the wild area. That's where you do them. Yeah, I think, man, Sword and Shield is really doing a lot to evolve the series.
Yeah, I feel like the last thing I have to say about this is that like, maybe this is just the beginning. Maybe with a Switch Pro, with a Switch 2, that this kind of thing will be expanded upon.
Maybe be the whole experience.
Maybe
that would be wonderful.
Find a way to balance it correctly, but.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I'm a fan.
You look at a game like Dragon Quest, and that is a full, huge open world where you go inside buildings and there's no loading zones. The buildings are just part of the overworld. There's only load points, like between actual towns in a few areas in the open world. If Pokemon could get to that level, I would be pretty happy.
Yeah. There is something else I would like to talk about with Pokemon Sword and Shield, and that is these new Gigantamax forms.
Yeah.
Of Gen 1 Pokemon.
Only Gen 1s that they announced.
Only Gen 1 Pokemon. They get the wonderful opportunity to see Mr. Longcat. I mean Meowth.
Long Meowth.
Long Meowth. We have a Gigantamax form of Butterfree. You seen that, Ben?
It almost reminds me of Mothra.
Yeah.
That might be a reference with that one.
Yeah, I guess these Gigantamax Pokemon are just kaiju.
Kaiju, yeah.
This incredible version of Charizard.
Yeah. That design is awesome.
If you haven't seen these, go look these up. Just type in Gigantamax Pokemon, because these are absolutely incredible designs. It's actually, I think, maybe the funniest thing, though, is that just Gigantamax Pikachu just looks like classic Pikachu.
Yeah, so Pikachu had a pretty notorious design change right around the lead-in from the Johto region to the Hoenn League in the anime, where Pikachu went from Chunky Boy here on this side of the table to Thin Boy over on this side of the table. So some of is it Sugiyama's art? Or correct me if I'm wrong, but like one of the original art drawings pieces of Pikachu is almost like beat for beat the design we got for Gigantamax Pikachu. Like the super long, thin tail, the ears kind of parted to the side, really chunky and chubby. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I wonder how intentional that was. Like, hey, let's take like an older design and kind of like breathe life into that and bring it back in a weird way.
I always like to have a Pikachu on my team just because, it's Pikachu. I love Pikachu. But that is like really motivating for me to have a Pikachu on my team now.
Yeah. So the other Gigantamax Pokemon?
Oh, quickly, Darcy mentions the obedience system is only for traded Pokemon, not from Pokemon from your own game. So maybe they'll have to amend that to kind of solve that issue.
Yeah, I would imagine they would have to, because otherwise, I mean, in previous games, you didn't really get the chance to catch some of those high-level Pokemons until you were ready.
Or maybe they'll just
against this Pokemon.
I almost wonder maybe if there would just be a way to prevent you from throwing Pokeballs at them. I don't know. There's got to be something.
Yeah, they would just like reject it outright.
Yeah.
Like no.
I guess you could waste your Master Ball on one.
Yeah. The other Gigantamax Pokemon was Gigantamax Eevee, who has a really, really fluffy like mane now.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's probably the most underwhelming of the designs.
It really does just look like Eevee, but bigger.
Eevee bigger and almost like it can't move its neck anymore.
It's like one of the old rubber Batman suits when the cowl wasn't separated from the rest of it.
Yeah. I look forward to seeing these forms in the game. And I think something else, we might have discussed this a little bit last week, or maybe outside of that, because we have a lot of discussion throughout the week.
We do.
Is I like the idea of them kind of like revisiting the Kanto region. We had talked about the anime, right? The new anime, how they're kind of like, okay, maybe the next gen is going to be, multiple regions at once as the games kind of get more bold and larger, and they start to kind of just fill out and bring back other Pokemon, make
I would
different forms.
I would be okay like with them not introducing a new region and doing what you said, and maybe not all of the regions, which I know is like the fan dream game. But if like there was like maybe 2 or 3 regions, and you introduce new Pokemon that are native to those regions.
Yeah, like Kanto versions.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. Like, could you imagine a Kanto Score Bunny? You know? Something like that.
That'd be cool.
Just as an example, because... or a Kanto Teapot. I don't even remember what that's called.
It's just a coffee mug. Or coffee pot.
It just looks really sad, and like it just woke up and
drowsy.
Essentially. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. Again, like I don't feel worthy. I really don't, because I feel like I need to go back and I need to finish Pokemon Y and Pokemon Sun.
I mean, don't worry. I played Pokemon Yellow, and then I never played another Pokemon game again until Heart Gold and Soul Silver.
Oh wow!
Which was a long, long break. And from then on, I played every entry in the series.
So you went from the first gen to the second gen, but the second gen remakes.
Yes.
And okay, that being said, the only Pokemon game I've ever beaten is Fire Red, which is first gen, third gen remakes. You know.
Great games.
Yeah, fantastic. The last bit of actual Nintendo news is that Nintendo has apologized for censoring Tokyo Mirage Sessions in Japan.
So I've looked into this a little bit. They are releasing the international version of Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE in Japan and every region. So this is kind of based on the American release of the original game, which heavily censored a lot of the outfits for a lot of the female characters, because Japan has a different tolerance to that kind of stuff than we do in the States.
For sure.
And in other regions. So I think their statement was, in order to stay up to regulation on all of their regions, they kind of had to release that way for, internationally. And I understand people are upset about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really relate, but I guess maybe there's a reason to be mad.
Yeah, I think ultimately, like, I was looking at some, like, comparison screenshots, videos, and I was like, I mean, it's obviously, like, oh, there's the censorship, but it's pretty subtle, and, like, it doesn't make a huge difference, like, ultimately.
Yeah, I know there are some narrative things that change because of the censorship.
Oh, okay.
There is a character most of the female characters are idols. The whole game is about idol culture.
Oh, okay.
And one of the idols is a different type of idol in Japan, which focuses mostly on erotica.
Okay.
So that was her past. It wasn't something she was doing anymore.
So it's actually affecting the story.
Yeah, so they had to kind of talk around that in a way.
Okay.
They actually, and I forget the YouTube channel I watched to kind of learn about some of this stuff, but it was done by Loxton, who I know is good buddies with Arlo. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yeah, so they actually had the Japanese voice actors come back and redo over 300 lines in order to change some of those story beats.
Interesting.
So, yeah, they were really committed to officially changing over a lot of this stuff. And it doesn't stop at the characters in the story. There are advertisements in the game, like, posters on the wall.
Okay.
All that kind of stuff changed. But most of it just dealt with, overexposure of a sexual nature.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously that isn't much different from what we got here in the States in the first place,
Yeah.
But I think it is interesting that they were just like, oh yeah, Japan gets it too. And maybe that has to deal with that it's a port, this was something that they're trying to put out, and they're not trying to do too much extra work to it, so it's just safest to release one version.
Yeah.
Something that's safe for all the areas.
And if people still want, that original version, I mean, the Japanese version of the Wii U game is still out there. Obviously, it's a lot less convenient than having it on Switch. But unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And I kind of have to side with the company on this one because, it probably would have been more expensive to do it the other way.
Yeah. And I'd rather just have this game even in any form, than not, because I'm not going out to buy a Wii U. I made like a reply to Andre Seeger's post about getting like a Color Splash port.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, I would love a Switch port because even though like I have my qualms with some of the later Paper Mario games.
Right.
We talked a little bit about this last week on a segment called Stop and Swap. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go out and purchase a Wii U. And people are like, well, it's cheap. Like, you can get a bundle for like less than $100. And I'm like, okay, you're totally missing the point. I'm not going to buy a console for like 1 or 2 games when they could just put those games on the Switch, and I wouldn't need an extra console in the first place.
And I have a feeling like the remainder of the big games for Wii U are still on the way for Switch.
Yeah, I imagine that the Wii U will essentially be put to bed. Maybe the only thing on there that doesn't make it over,
Star Fox?
either Star Fox, because of the nature of the game,
Nintendo Land.
or Nintendo Land.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. Which even then, man, I would take Nintendo Land.
There is a way to make Nintendo Land work on Wii U on Nintendo Switch. It would just require 2 of them.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. Darcy also mentions that the uncensored version of Tokyo Mirage Sessions in Japan on Wii U is actually the best-selling Wii U game on Amazon Japan. So apparently that game was incredibly popular.
Did they have a censored version in Japan as well?
I don't think they released an international version in Japan after the original. I could be wrong. But we're definitely getting the international version with the Switch release.
For sure.
In all territories.
Well, there are other games that don't have quite the controversy surrounding them, but that did end up on the Switch. That being the recent Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, which Yooka-Laylee is, a spiritual successor in a lot of ways to Banjo-Kazooie.
Right.
Especially with the original release of just Yooka-Laylee.
Specifically developed by much of the original team.
Yeah. Which is also interesting because obviously for the Impossible Lair, one of the primary influences was Donkey Kong Country, which was developed by Rare.
And it's kind of cool because a lot of the influence for Impossible Lair not only draws from Donkey Kong Country, but Donkey Kong Country Returns and Tropical Freeze, which was developed by Retro Studios.
Sure.
It's really cool to kind of see them take what Donkey Kong Country evolved into and sort of adapt that into their own game. I'm glad they didn't make the mistake they made with the original Yooka-Laylee, which was staying way too close to what Banjo-Kazooie was. Banjo-Kazooie is a great game, but it also came out in the 90s.
Right.
That was a long time ago. A lot of things have changed. They can still build the game on Banjo's foundation, but they didn't really evolve it.
For sure.
But it seems like that's what they're doing with this game.
Yeah. So, outside of that, they talked about the potential for other Yooka-Laylee games, spin-offs, other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And while I would like to see a Yooka-Laylee 2 and see that, evolution of the 3D platformer, Mark Stevenson and Steve Mails, I don't know how to pronounce.
Steve Mails.
Steve Mails. We're talking about other things that potentially could happen, right? They say that they didn't necessarily intend for just making Yooka-Laylee games, but that they are open to doing other things with it. They say this: I think we'll keep working on Yooka-Laylee in the future. Really, we could work on any kind of game. A racing game like Mario Kart or a shooter like Splatoon. We've never intended Yooka and Laylee to be the protagonists of all of our games. In the future, we could make a spinoff with one of the many characters from Yooka-Laylee, like Dr. Quack or Dr. Puzz. Being independent lets us follow whatever way we want and the one we think is right. This is fascinating because obviously, like, I don't think it should be surprising that the developers are thinking of ways that they could remix these IPs into any other thing, especially if they want to kind of turn Yooka-Laylee into their mascot.
I was even going to interject and say I would love it if they made a kart racer.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that that's on their minds because they're responsible for what I believe to be one of the best kart racers ever made in Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
If they did Yooka-Laylee racing, I'd probably buy it immediately.
Dude, hashtag Yooka-Laylee for Mario Kart.
Oh, yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Honestly, I do have a dream for Yooka-Laylee.
Okay.
And that's that Yooka-Laylee and Banjo can be in the same game someday. Because they're both, great characters. Yooka-Laylee is developed by the original team. They're both developed by the same people.
Right.
It'd be kind of great to see them unite because now Yooka-Laylee isn't so much a replacement for Banjo anymore because Banjo is kind of creeping his way back in to the gaming world thanks to Smash Ultimate. So at this point, I don't want to see Yooka-Laylee kind of be its own thing. Well, I want it to be its own thing, but I want, if the next time it wants to take on Banjo-Kazooie, I want to see Banjo-Kazooie there too.
For sure.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
It's also kind of interesting. You talked about them wanting to take some of those characters from Yooka-Laylee and spin them off into their own IPs, which reminds me of Diddy Kong Racing because Diddy Kong Racing featured Banjo and Conker before they really had their own games. I believe Banjo-Kazooie was currently in development when Banjo was put in Diddy Kong Racing.
Mm-hmm.
And Conker may have had the Game Boy game out by that point.
Yeah, which was like rated E, and then it was like a children's game.
Yeah, it was a children's game. So yeah, that's basically what they did the first time. So it's kind of cool that they're still thinking about doing that, but with their new characters.
For sure. Well, I mean, that's it for news. So I guess this will bring us into our final segment for this podcast, the question slot.
We still have the retro minute to do.
Oh, I thought man, did that just fly by?
We'll
save the question slot. Give us that hot.
So we don't have an animation for this one yet because this one was kind of off the cuff. But we're starting a new segment on the show called Retro Minute, which basically is us talking about games that released on this day or as close to as possible. Today also happens to be the day that Pokemon Yellow released back in 1999.
In North America, specifically.
Yeah.
It did release in Japan and Australia sooner than it did in North America.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. But I basically wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about Pokemon Yellow, specifically more our introduction to Pokemon, because I know it's different for us.
Yeah, for sure.
But for me, I got a Game Boy, and I'm pretty sure it was in 1999 for Christmas, and I got Pokemon Yellow with it, because I believe the anime had already been airing in the States.
Of course.
Because Yellow, I believe, came out 1 or 2 years after Red and Blue.
Yeah, wasn't Yellow kind of in response to the anime?
Yeah, so Yellow is kind of adapting the Ash and Pikachu dynamic for the video game, and it's really the only time that they've ever done this with the main series. They never have gone back to this idea. But it is essentially Pokemon Red and Blue, but you don't get to choose your starter. Your starter is Pikachu. You can talk to Pikachu. Pikachu will interact with you. It grows to love you more over time, kind of like how we see Pikachu kind of hates Ash in the first episode, so they emulate that a little bit. It has updated sprites for all of the Pokemon in battle sequences. And then other than that, it's start to finish, it's Pokemon Red and Blue.
Right.
This was my introduction to the video games. And it took me a long time to beat. And that's because I had never played an RPG before. Pokemon Yellow was my first ever turn-based RPG.
Oh.
Yeah.
How nice.
Yes. Did you know how hard it is to beat Brock when all you have is a Pikachu?
Yeah. Rock Pokemon and electric Pokemon don't really mix.
Yeah, in fact, electric type attacks don't work on rock Pokemon at all. So what I eventually ended up doing, this is why Pidgeot is one of my favorite Pokemon.
Okay.
I caught a Pidgey, and I evolved it all the way through to a Pidgeotto. I had never level grinded before in anything because this was my first RPG. So my first experience with level grinding was capturing a Pidgey and leveling it up as much as I could, evolving it into Pidgeotto, going to face Brock, and keep in mind, Pidgey is still not a great option against Geodude and Onix.
Yeah.
So what I did is I used Pikachu's Growl, and I used Growl until I ran out of PP. So and Growl lowers the Pokemon's attack power.
Right.
So I basically did that so that my Pidgeotto could just strong arm all the way through the two Pokemon. And I won, and that's how I got my first badge. And then I went to battle Misty and just one-shotted them with Pikachu.
You're using that creative side that I just know of you so well, you know. Just you gotta think outside of the box sometimes. Even if it comes to using a Pidgeotto to beat Brock.
Darcy says, I played my brother's copy of Yellow as a kid. We didn't have a Game Boy, but we played it through Pokemon Stadium with a transfer pack accessory on the controller.
Yo,
I remember that. Yeah,
that's solid.
That's such a cool thing for Pokemon Stadium too, because you could use rental Pokemon in that game, which just had basic stats or base stats and base attacks, nothing that you could change. But you could transfer your Pokemon from your Game Boy game and register them as a team, and then use them in all of the single player modes.
Oh, no way.
And in multiplayer if you want to battle your friends.
Okay.
It was basically a 3D Pokemon sim. That's what Stadium is.
Right.
So yeah, what weird technology. The N64 controller had a port on its back, and they used it for a variety of things. Memory card slot, Rumble Pack, transfer pack for Pokemon. So like I said earlier on the show, I didn't play another Pokemon game until Soul Silver. Not counting games like Pokemon Stadium, Pokemon Snap.
Right. I
played a lot of the spin-offs. But main series Pokemon game, Pokemon Yellow was it for me for a long time. But I adore that game. It was something special. Pidgeot became my favorite Pokemon. I was not really good at training all of my Pokemon back then, as most of us weren't. So I ended up beating the game with Pidgeot alone. And I went through the entirety of the Elite Four with just Pidgeot.
Yo.
And then I went and captured Mewtwo, and then I had 2 Pokemon I could use.
Yeah, that sounds like a 6-year-old move.
Yeah, that was me.
I mean, the fact that you did it though, that's some solid stuff right there.
I appreciate it. That said, the Pokemon games aren't that hard.
No, certainly not.
That's why I appreciate experience shares so much. Because who's got time to switch out and train every individual Pokemon?
Yeah.
I'm 25 years old. I work a 40-hour-week job. I can't just sit down and play with my Pokemon for hours.
Yeah. Thank goodness that the game actually, the series progressed in a lot of ways.
It's such, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow are such, rudimentary games, and they're a mess of code. At least they were until God bless Satoru Iwata for fixing those games.
Yeah.
Especially with Gold and Silver, where he fixed the code so much and dropped the file size, they were able to fit the entirety of the Kanto region in the game with it.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible.
So incredible. But yeah, Pokemon Yellow, I think, is responsible for making people really attached to their Pokemon because it allowed Pikachu to kind of run around with you. And that's something they brought back with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. You could have any Pokemon behind you.
Yeah.
And they did it again with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee.
For sure. Which are remakes of Yellow.
Yes, they are specifically a remake of Pokemon Yellow, which is the first time they've ever remade the third entry in a single series. But yeah, I have a lot of fond memories of Pokemon Yellow. I mean, I'm a lifelong Pokemon fan, and I love Pikachu, as you can see by the table here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I don't really have anything to say about those games, so I say we move on to the final segment that I tried to start.
The question slot.
So we got a few questions here. Should be noted that we will be doing this segment weekly. and hopefully we will give you a little bit more of a heads up
We forgot
about the question. But we did get a few questions. Thank you to David and Santi for your questions. We'll go with David's question first. If the next Nintendo Switch iteration was just a Switch Lite, non-detachable Joy-Con and all, that could dock, would you buy it? That's kind of a no-brainer because I wish the Switch Lite did that. Like already. Like just give me a dongle, something to plug right into the bottom of the Switch that I could also just throw into the TV. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I don't even use my Joy-Cons to play Switch games unless I'm in handheld mode.
Yeah.
Like, I use my Pro Controller. So a Switch Lite that could dock without non-detachable Joy-Cons sounds like the perfect Switch to me.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider, how fragile the Joy-Con attachments are, like the railings. They break on a lot of people because they're made of plastic.
Yeah.
So if you drop your Switch, there's a good chance you're just going to break the ability to snap the Joy-Con on. So if they model it after the Switch Lite, where they're non-detachable, that solves the problem.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. Hopefully they can do that with a future version of the Switch Lite.
Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, they'd be removing the snap, but whatever.
Whatever.
It's part of the marketing, man.
Yeah, well, you can still buy a regular Switch, so it'll always be there. Santi has a few questions. Pretty good. What's a game that you wish you could play but never could due to availability or localization?
Yeah, so I actually have a couple of these. 3, in fact. 2 of them I have gotten to play because, I imported one of them for GameCube. That was Naruto Gekito Ninja Taisen 4, which is, in American terms, it's Naruto Clash of Ninja 4, which is a game that never released here. Clash of Ninjas 1 and 2 released here in the States, and then with the transition to Nintendo Wii, they didn't port over 3 and 4. They made a new series of games called Clash of Ninja Revolution, which ruined the battle system, by the way. Except for Revolution 3. They really took it to heart and fixed a lot of the stuff, and it actually has the best fighting engine of the entire series. That said, Gekito Ninja Taisen 4 features a lot of my favorite characters from the end of Part 1 of Naruto, which is one of the more famed parts of the series because of the events that take place during it. And I really wanted to play it because I loved Clash of Ninja. It's a really underrated fighting game series, especially for a licensed game.
For sure.
So that's one. The next is Battle Stadium DON, another game I've gotten to play, which is a Super Smash Brothers style game featuring D, Dragon Ball, O, One Piece, and N, Naruto. So it's all your favorite characters from those 3 anime in a Smash Brothers style beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fun.
That's so good.
And then the last game is a game I have not gotten to play, and that is a game on the Wii called Captain Rainbow.
Ah.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Captain Rainbow is a Nintendo-published game where the titular character, Captain Rainbow, goes to this island after his reign as a superhero is kind of over, and he runs into a bunch of Nintendo properties that are misfits now. Little Mac, Birdo, a few other characters, and basically you're there to help solve their problems. Little Mac has become incredibly overweight. He is no longer a fighter, and you got to help him slim down, man. You got to help him get back in the ring. Birdo has some other problems that are maybe not appropriate for American audiences anymore, or ever. So we're not going to talk about that one. But yeah, it's a really weird idea for a video game that just sounds really charming.
Yeah, for sure.
That never ended up coming here.
Yeah.
And I think it might be because of Birdo.
For sure. There are 2 games that come to mind for this question. Now, I should say I have played both of these games.
Okay.
One I have never finished, and I am currently at the state of, man, I either need to spend a lot of money to get this game at this point, or they just need to make an HD remake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that would be Skies of Arcadia. that was originally released on the Dreamcast, and then
So not Legends, the original version of the game.
well, I'm grouping them together
Okay.
at this point. But Legends was obviously the GameCube version, which I had at some point. I never finished it. I got really far into that game, never finished it. And so now I'm just hoping that at some point they can just release an HD version of that game, because I think I would love to have access to it and put it on my Switch. I would also love if other people got the chance to play it, because it's a fantastic RPG. The other game that for the longest time I wanted to play, that I was absolutely enamored with, that recently did get an HD remake and I got the chance to play through.
That was localized?
Was Katamari Damacy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did the PS2 version not come out in the States?
I believe it did.
Okay.
But it was not regularly available. It's not
Sure.
like it was a huge game.
Yeah.
So I never was able to find a copy on the PS2. Like, it was just something that was never available.
It was always that game you saw in YouTube videos that was like, wow, that looks so cool.
Yeah, that's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
I watched a ton of it on YouTube. It's like, oh my gosh, this looks like so much fun. Never got the chance. So that's it for me. There is one more question from Santi before we wrap up here with Nintendo Stuff, episode 56. It's Yoko Shimomura's birthday.
Yep.
She's done music for the entire Mario and Luigi series, Super Mario RPG, Xenoblade 1, remixes for Smash, Street Fighter 2, and, of course, Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy. Any favorite songs from those games?
Okay, so Mario and Luigi, a couple songs come to mind. The battle theme from the original game, that song is a bop. The battle theme from Dream Team is also a bop. Those are two of my favorite video game tracks. The Forest Maze from Super Mario RPG, that's a famous song because of a famous YouTube video or a Newgrounds Flash animation. The Forest Maze. I can't comment on Xenoblade 1 because I've never played that. And then Kingdom Hearts, Dearly Beloved.
Yeah, no, I think Dearly Beloved is definitely something that
I love that song.
I still have to finish the first game, but it's absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
The only other thing I can think of, and I'm not sure which Final Fantasy games that she has worked on, and I haven't played a ton of Final Fantasy VII, but the end of battle theme from Final Fantasy VII, the victory.
Is that dun, 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 is that the one, or that's just the general Final Fantasy?
No,
one?
yeah, this is you finished the battle, and the music afterwards is the dopest tune I have ever heard.
I don't think I've ever heard it.
I'll show it to you later.
Okay.
I'll also post it on what do you call it, on Twitter and Discord.
Santi says 7 was actually Nobuo Uematsu.
Oh yeah. But that's what comes to mind.
He is the person responsible for the Smash Brothers Brawl theme.
Oh, okay.
Quick piece of trivia
I knew
you.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, of the other ones, I love the Xenoblade 1 soundtrack, though I can't think of any specific song that
I'm aware of the battle
really
theme,
hits.
and I know that's a popular one, and the field theme for it's the stage in Smash Brothers.
Right.
That field.
Yes.
That's a very popular track. But yeah, those are going to be the ones for me. And any others for you?
Nothing else that comes to mind. But yeah.
I love the original version of Treasure Trove Cove from Banjo-Kazooie, and I have to say Yoko did a fantastic job on the remix for Smash
sure.
Ultimate. But that is going to do it for episode 56 of Nintendo Stuff. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let us know what you think of the the new visual updates we've gotten here. I might have to play with the white balance a little bit. But
Just a little bit.
The new overhead lights make this a lot brighter of a show. And I think it's really going to help improve our workflow here.
Yeah. I'm glad, because it feels a lot more lively in this room, so.
It's also nice to not have to work in the dark.
Yeah.
So, if you liked what you heard here, make sure to come back next week for episode 57 of Nintendo Stuff. We'll be recording that on Saturday, bar anything that goes wrong, because you never know. If you really liked what you heard, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast sources, such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify, and many, many more. So make sure to find us there. If you want to link to all of those, you can find us on anchor.fm/Nintendo Stuff. You can also help support the show by becoming a channel member, supporting us there on Anchor, becoming a patron. There's a link to that in the description as well. And then make sure to follow me on Twitter at BappaBabs. Follow Logan at LoggyDubs. Tweet at us. Talk to us. Let us know what's on your mind. And if you want to become a roomie or a real friend of the show, make sure to join the Discord server.
Join the Discord.
Lots of fun stuff going on in the Discord server. And I think that basically covers it. So I want to thank everybody for listening or tuning in if you're watching the video version. But until then, don't break your backs. Break in the games. But for now, break time is over.